Hello and welcome back to Causal 101. I'm Taimur, the founder and CEO of Causal, and over the course of this video series, I'll be teaching you how to use our product. Now, even if you're like me and you usually like figuring things out for yourself, this video series is actually the quickest way for you to understand Causal, and I can guarantee that. Now, in the first two videos, we've looked at how you can build a model in Causal. We've been focusing on the spreadsheet, Causal's core interface, and we've built our financial model using a bunch of different assumptions about our business, as well as a bunch of different formulas that we have written. We've broken down our model into our 4 different products that our coffee business sells, and now we're ready to start visualizing some of that data. In this video, we'll be showing you how to create different charts and tables so you can report to your team and your stakeholders about what's going on in your business. Let's dive in. All right, so this is where we had gotten to at the end of the last video. We have our financial model for Coffee Inc. We have a bunch of assumptions about our business in these 3 different groups in the input section. We have our revenue calculations, our cost of goods, our operational expenses, and some overall metrics. And if you'll recall, we created this product category with a list of all of our different products. Now that we have the numbers that we care about in our financial model, let's see how we can start visualizing these things. Now, the easiest way to create a chart or a table in Causal is simply to right-click on a variable and hover over Create Chart, and then you'll see all of the different chart options that you can use. Let's click on Bar Chart in this instance. Great. We now have a bar chart showing our revenue over time. And because of that growth rate range that we assume, 5 to 10%, we're seeing a range for all of these forecasted numbers as well. Now, one thing to notice is that we're seeing a chart preview here in this right-hand side sidebar. To toggle the sidebar on or off, just click on the charts button here in the top right. This sidebar is a handy place to be able to see the different charts in your models and be able to dive into each chart and edit them. Now, suppose we want to customize our revenue chart. The way we can do that is by clicking on this big edit button in the top right. This will bring up a bigger version of the chart, as well as this new sidebar where we can configure different things. Now, you'll recall that we had 4 different products in our business. Suppose we wanted to see a stacked bar chart where each segment of the stack was representing a different product. And to do that, let's go over to the categories breakdown section of the sidebar. You'll see that Causal is recommending that we can apply a product breakdown to this chart. So we can just click on this tag, and in a sec, we will now see a stacked bar chart showing all 4 different products. And the chart tooltip will also show us the contributions for our total revenue that are coming from each product. So that's one thing you can do on charts. You can see breakdowns if you have categories applied. The other key thing you might want to do is visualize your data at different timescales. Right now, this chart is showing us monthly numbers, but we might be interested in seeing this instead quarterly or yearly. To do that, we can use the drop-down that's directly on the chart itself, and we can switch to, say, a quarterly view. Next, we might be interested in seeing some labels on these bars to see specific numbers. And so if we go over to the display tab of the sidebar and scroll down, we can toggle the labels on. You'll see there's also an option to show the growth rate, and we can toggle that on as well. And you'll see there's an option to make the chart half width or full width. In this case, we will keep this half width, but in a sec, we'll be diving into the different ways you can lay out things on your dashboard. Now, there's obviously a bunch of different options here as well. We're not going to dive into all of them right now. We're going to have a much more detailed video diving into all the different visualization options. But at a high level, we've kind of touched on most of the important things, and it's not too hard to figure out what, for example, date range does. So have a play around yourself to understand what else is going on in this chart. So we've got our first chart. It's showing us our revenue over time. Let's create a couple more charts. Let's maybe create a chart for our total cost of goods. In this case, we can put it on a line chart, and we should see this kind of nice line showing the range of our total cost of goods over time. And just as before, we can click on edit to start configuring this chart and visualizing things. Next, we might be interested in creating a P&L table, for example, of a bunch of the different variables in our model. To create our table, we can multi-select a bunch of these variables by using command click or control click to select multiple variables, or shift click to select a whole sequence of variables. And then in the same way as we did with charts, we can right click and go on create chart and then table. And this will create a table down here in our preview sidebar. Once again, we can click the edit button in the top right, and here we'll see all of the different configuration options for our table. Now, the table configuration options are a little bit different to the chart options, but if you're familiar with pivot tables in Excel or in data visualization or BI tools like Looker or Tableau, then hopefully this shouldn't be too difficult. The key concept when it comes to pivot tables is that you can apply different breakdowns in the rows of the table and different breakdowns in the columns of the table. Now, in this case, we have a product breakdown in the different rows of the table. We have a row for each product, we have a total across those products, and in the columns, we have the time breakdown. We have the different years, and we can expand these out to see the monthly values. Now, if we scroll down here on the right-hand side, you'll see exactly that same information. Here, you'll see that we have time in the columns breakdown of the table, and we have product in the rows. Now, this table is looking a bit long. It seems a bit excessive to have different rows for each product. And so we can remove product from the rows by simply hovering over this and clicking on the minus button. Now this table is looking a lot simpler. We might be interested in seeing the different sections of our variables represented on this table. If you recall, we had a section for revenue, a section for cost of goods, a section for operating expenses. And so if we go over to the display section of the table, we can toggle on this shows sections toggle, and this will show the section breakdown. This will recreate the same sections that we had in the spreadsheet. If we had groups of variables as well, they would have their own style within this table too. And so this is a way that you can break out your table into different chunks. Now for this table, we're going to make it full width, and we're going to see what that looks like in a sec. So there's a bunch of other options which you can play around with. And as I mentioned before, we're going to have a detailed video specifically on charts and tables where you can learn about all the different options, but it shouldn't be too hard to pick up. For each of our visualizations, we can set a different title. We can call this revenue by product, for example. We can set a description. Or we can leave the description blank for any of these, and we can call this our summary table. So we have the charts sidebar showing us a preview of these things. If we want to see what this would look like once we share it with someone from our team, we can click on this dashboard button. This will show us the actual dashboard layout for our model. Now, the main things that you have control over in the dashboard layout are firstly the width of the charts or tables. Charts can either be half width like these two, or full width like the table below. And you can also control the sequence of your charts and tables by dragging things around. And so if we wanted to swap these two around, we could simply drag them, and we could do the same for our table as well. Now, there's a lot of blank space in this table right now. So what we might want to do is see quarterly numbers instead of yearly. There's a couple of other options in there as well. And you can also show comparisons, for example, to the previous month if you wanted to as well. And so we should see that in the monthly column. So finally, you can resize the height of different charts and tables. And so we might want to make this table just a little bit taller so that people don't have to scroll when looking at it. And if we now click on this preview button, we should see the final product that we've just created. We've got the inputs from our input section. All of those inputs will appear up here at the top for people to play around with. We have our two charts side by side here, and we have our full width table down below. Anyone looking at this can play around with some of the dynamic aspects of our charts and tables, like the different timescales, and these changes won't get saved for everyone else unless they have the right level of access and hit the save button to save the changes. So that's the basics of charts and tables in Causal. Very easy to work with, hopefully a lot simpler than creating the same outputs in spreadsheets, because we have a little bit more structure in terms of the categories and the time breakdowns and so on. In the next video, we'll be walking through how to pull in some historical data for our business, and we're going to be doing that in Google Sheets. I'll see you there.